Hello and welcome to the Tarkir Dragonstorm limited set review. In this video, I'll be going over some of the cards in my set review that I want to talk about in terms of my evaluations being right or wrong. Just talking overall about how the format played out, just generally what was going on. I missed the early data review this format because there was some recording issues and timing issues and whatever. So this is kind of going to be my only opportunity to go over Dragonstorm as a set, and it comes right before the Arena Open this weekend. That being said, we will start with the cards I got wrong, and there's a lot of them I've sort of every time I do this video, I kind of every set I'm adding more and more cards I want to talk about that I got wrong. As I've divorced myself from like consensus, I guess I would say, just trying to do my own thing and just be completely unbiased when I come to the set review has led to there being more things I get wrong and more things I feel confident about getting right. So I keep expanding this. Anyways, the first card to look at is Loxodon Battle Priest. So this one, I think, when you lean too much into the heuristic of this type of card has been good before, and we've seen this type of card be very good at lower mana values, specifically 2 and 3. This type of effect has been really good. It doesn't translate so well to a 5-drop. And you would think it would translate somewhat well because of having 5 toughness, specifically getting around Molten Exhale. And that actually would have been a key thing that mattered. But there were a lot of things working against this card. This, and there are several other larger threats, are completely outclassed by the Dragons deck. I think this card is not quite as bad in a vacuum as it performed in this set, as with a lot of other 5 and 6 drops. I think in a normal limited set, this card is actually a lot better than it performed in the set because you can afford to run so many better threats than it. And that's what the whole set is about, really, is dragons. So this card doesn't really matter in a world of dragons, and therefore it's kind of bad. Also, the whole not putting counters on itself thing, kind of a big deal. So that was also a big miss. Essence Anchor. So coming off of the back of the slow format of Ether Drift into another slow format, we saw a lot of these type of cards in Ether Drift work. Ether Siphon worked, and the green-black Reanimate Surveil one on your upkeep card worked. And this card I thought would sort of fall into that same place. I did draft one deck. I did get to draft the Essence Anchor deck once in this format. It did happen. It did actually come up. It was right. It actually was really good when it worked, but it only happened once. And as we'll get to later, you can't really lean into this. It kind of just has to happen. And I thought this card would be something you could lean into, and there just really isn't enough. Again, it's another thing that just gets completely outclassed by dragons, and it's doesn't perform well in the aggro matchup, so it basically has no good matchups, and that's unless you're really, really going deep, which you can do, but requires a lot. Fresh Start, a card I underrated. Not as many cards I underrate usually on this part of the review. This part of the reason this card is so good in this set is that the blue counterspell at common is really good, and this plays well with it. So that is definitely helping this card be stronger, but it is also just a reasonable removal spell. -5, -0, lose all abilities is basically a removal spell. There's not really any sacrifice going on in the set. There's no real way to get value from creatures on the board. Because again, the creatures that matter really matter, and the creatures that don't matter just are irrelevant, right? When you got a bunch of flying dragons, this card makes a dragon not have flying anymore. The fact that it can theoretically hold stuff back doesn't matter as much. And so again, the whole consistent theme of the dragon stuff works, the multicolor stuff works, the other stuff doesn't matter as much. Cheap interaction, even if it's kind of in a normal set, and I think would I put this in tier 4 again? No, but I think I would probably start it in a normal set closer to tier 3. I don't feel like that's so wrong. I do think this set was uniquely good for Fresh Start. Gurmag Rakshasa is a card that similarly to the white 5 drop from earlier, just suffers so much from it not being what the format's about. It also suffers from black being the worst color in the sense that like this doesn't matter. I still think it's like a good card. There's still like a deep in my soul believe that this card is pretty good and in normal set would be good. Is it as good as I rated it in the set review? No. Was I like I compared it to Wix Patrol. Wix Patrol is clearly better than this card. I think in any format Wix Patrol would be better than this card, and it was a mistake for me to grade this as Wix Patrol, which I don't even think I would have had it as a tier 1. I think I would have Wix Patrol as a tier 2 card. So that was clearly a mistake. But just this card didn't matter. Like it just didn't matter enough because it got outclassed so easily. Breaching Dragonstorm. As we mentioned, dragons were relevant. This card wasn't amazing by any means. You see I've revised it to tier 3. I don't really think that it's like a great thing to be doing or like necessary. It's very, it's hard to build a deck where there's not a decent amount of luck associated with this card, like being good or bad for you. So, like that, there's still all that. I think it's a playable card. I don't think it's a priority in the Dragon deck. I think there's other ways to get value that are better. But this, just being a playable card that's somewhat reasonable, was not on my bingo card for this set. And in the opposite direction, War Effort. So the big thing about War Effort that it sets it apart from this style of effect usually, because usually these 4 mana give your creatures +1/+0 effects, they tend to be pretty bad. They've been bad historically. There are a couple of things. One of them is that there were so many, like mobilize as a mechanic really, really made this tick because you could go so wide. So much wider than you can in a normal set. In a normal limited set, you can get to like 3, maybe 4 creatures on board, and it's pretty difficult to get more than that at a time. And this set, you could get to 10 at some reasonable rate. 8 was like a pretty like 6 was common. 8 like you could get to 6 in like almost any game with mobilize if you can't mobilize. So like this giving you another extra thing, it just allowed you to do the attack all, attack all, attack all, get in 10 damage a turn and just win the game plan, which was really powerful. So this is a completely context dependent card. It only plays well in like a very specific set of decks. It turns out that that set of decks is the like quote unquote best. It is the maybe not the absolute best, but the best on average thing to be doing in this format. Go wide, Boros, aggro. This card allows you to play that deck and is really good in that deck. So it's a good card. And it should be rated in tier 2, but I think I would rate it low again. Like I think I would run this back. I think if you put this in a normal limited set, it's medium to bad. And I would have to be proven wrong again for it to be rated this high. I think this is like the perfect. If you were to construct a format for this card, this would be the format. Like this is like the perfect format for it, and that's why it's in the set. Genius, but yeah. And the last card I got wrong is Dragonstorm Globe, a card that I think everybody would just get wrong because any heuristic will tell you, hey, the manolith like usually isn't that great, and this one is. It sort of on its surface appears to be a little bit Win-Mori. It's like, oh great, your dragon is bigger. Like, oh okay, cool. Like you cast a dragon and it's bigger. Like you are like by having resolved the dragon, that wasn't enough. You know what I mean? It sort of feels like you're kind of being a bit Win-Mori. But when everybody has all this stuff in their deck, and you get to be the guy who's like, all right, well, my dragon's a 4/4 and yours is a 3/3. Like that actually matters a lot. So this was actually like a central card of the format. This actually, if you have to pick a card to represent Tarkir Dragonstorm, it is Dragonstorm Globe. Dragonstorm Globe is the straw that stirs the drink in this format. This is the most important card in the entire format. And I certainly wouldn't have said that going into the format. And you could make coherent arguments for other cards. I would say this is the card that if somebody asks you what was going on in Dragonstorm, 3 years from now, this is the card people are going to be talking about. This is the one that's going to live long in the memory. It's, I think it is probably too strong. I think it is likely too good. Um, it accomplishes the goal of the set, which ostensibly is make dragons powerful and impactful, and like that's the format. And when you have 6 standard legal sets in a year, I actually think doing something like this, like Tarkir Dragonstorm, is more reasonable and it's fine. Because I mean, my opinion is that it is a format that has gotten a bit stale, but I think you can have that when you're rotating sets every 2 months instead of every 3 months, right? Like I think it's more reason. I think it's like, you know what, that's fine. It's unique, and for the first 2 weeks, it was great. It was one of the most fun like first couple weeks of a formats I've ever had. But the next 3 weeks are going to be a bit tough. Maybe I'll actually be productive for once. So yes, Dragonstorm Globe. One of my biggest misses in a set review ever. I mean, it's not. I'm not going to say it's my fault. That it's everybody makes mistakes, but it is. This is the format. This card is the format, and yeah, there's a reason it's on the title slide. On to the cards I got right. I always like to talk about these. Dispelling Exhale, top to bottom. Called this card Mana Leak. It's better than Mana Leak. I think. I don't know. It's sick. It's a sick counterspell. It's the best Quench variant they've printed since Streets of New Capenna. It might be better than the one from Streets of New Capenna in Limited. Um, yeah, I mean, this card is just really, really insane. And I was right about it. I think a lot of people got this right, but I was certainly one of them. I think I would have had this as your second best blue common behind Sibzik Appraiser. I think that bore out in spades. They likely would have been my 2 best commons going into the format. Maybe Molten Exhale might have been above Dispelling Exhale because whatever. And I still think I might feel that way today, but all the exhales are pretty playable and good. And this one is very, very strong. Sarkhan's Resolve. Yeah, I mean, just a main deckable plummet, really, in this format. The +3/+3 did come up a decent amount, and I think this is a perfectly playable card. I have it in tier 3, and I think that's how I feel about it now. Do I maybe draft it more like it's tier 4? I don't know. I mean, I think it's like pretty solid. Like I think the first copy of this is tier 3, and the second copy is tier 4. So it's kind of it's not a card you really want multiples of, but I do think the first copy is actively good in your deck and not an archetype of card that is always super premium. Glacial Dragon Hunt, a card type that I tend to get right more often than I see other people get it right. For whatever reason, my tendencies as a limited player lead me to like cards like this more than most people in previous season. The thing about discarding non-land cards, and I've made this point before, but I'm going to make it here as well, is that when you have an effect that if it just says discard a card on it, you're discarding a non-land card at least 30% of the time, probably closer to 40% of the time in a normal, like on turn 2, you know what I mean? Like on turn 2, when you most want to cast this to remove something, you're discarding a non-land card pretty frequently. Not more than half the time, but frequently. And so if you're already discarding a non-land card, this just is a 2-mana deal 3 loot. And then it gives you a second 2-mana deal 3 loot later in the game, or you can just draw cards. It's like, or I guess it's 6 mana, but it's, you can harmonize it. It's the type of card that I do think is easy to underrate, and I'm happy I got this one right. And I'm happy it was as good as it was. Salt Road Pack Beast. I mean, is it? I'm really patting myself on the back for a card that a lot of people saw would be good, but yes, I mean the go wide thing working, just kind of in your head, shortcutting this to be a 4-mana 4/3 draw card. It would have been good enough if that were the case, and then it's better than that in a lot of spots. So I mean, this was just kind of a slam dunk. Champion of Doosan, a card that really could have been an all-time design. It's a really powerful green 3-drop. The problem is that 3 drops in this set are in a really contested spot. Like, because the twos are like green doesn't have a good aggressive two drop. It has Inoc Wayfarer, which is a 1/1 most of the time, and sometimes you can make it a 2/2, but that's not really great. It has the 2/2 cat, which is probably your best two drop if you're trying to be a green aggressive-ish deck. And it's like you're really playing a 2-mana 2/2, and like this kind of, if green had a better common two drop that was more assertive, this card would be a little bit better. It's still a very strong card. It's just kind of in this weird spot, and there's so much good interaction in the set. I don't know. I think if the set characteristics fell right, this could have been one of your like top 10 commons in a limited set. Like this is the type of card that could have, after playing with it a bit, seeing it, and just kind of seeing how it plays, it's like this is the type of card that I feel like could be a top 10 common in a limited set. And I think the design is kind of great. I think it's one of the best designed 3 mana cards in a long time. I don't know. I really like this card a lot. I'm sort of saying its praises a lot. And I think I evaluated it as a good 3 drop, but just not quite gonna be like amazing. And that's kind of what tier 3 means. Is like it's pretty good, but like, is it the best? Is it like you're never gonna pack one pick one this? You wouldn't be happy to like pick it before pick 4 or 5 in most spots. It's just kind of it's just kind of not that important. But I do think like it's the type of card that I feel like it didn't reach its full potential. It's kind of my the way I feel about Champion of Dusan. Dragonbird's Relic. So I got this one more right than I even like thought about at the time. So this is a card that I had a really hard time evaluating, and I kind of noted it. I was like, okay, well, this is very similar to the Kaldheim enchantment that did almost the same thing, but it drew a card. This format, it's been 3 years since Kaldheim. I think it might actually have been longer than that, but don't quote me on that. Um, this card is not quite as good because it doesn't work on its own and it doesn't just draw you the card up front. But it does ramp you, so that's kind of making up for it a bit. And it's more powerful when you sacrifice it, kind of. And it's different, slightly worse, but still pretty good. And I think that's exactly where this landed. It's still pretty good. It's kind of its own like deck. You kind of need to support it a bit to be doing the thing. You really want to be full 5 colors, and it does help you do that. You kind of need a lot, like a number of small pieces to like get it to be at its best. But I do think in that deck, it's pretty good. And I think I was spot on with my evaluation of this card. On to the overall format review. I've given it a 5 out of 10. It's continued to trend downwards. I think by the end of the format, I might be on 4 out of 10. It's for all the praises I said about the unique nature of the set, of being like, hey, they really wanted a set that was about dragons, and that's what the set's about. And I think it accomplished its goals in the same way that I think Foundations is a limited set that accomplished its goals. This is a limited format that accomplished its goals, and for that reason, you could give it like a higher rating. You could say, hey, you know what? Our goal was to make a unique environment where this format's about dragons. And like to give the Foundations analogy, a set that I think I also gave basically a 5 out of 10. I might have given it a 6. I forget. The analogy is, hey, the goal of Foundations is very simple, but there's some nuance. Like the format needs to be simple. We need to have minimal keywords. It needs to be simple mechanics, and there needs to be some play to it. And the cards need to be legal and standard for 5 years. And they kind of like nailed that. And in this set, but the format is kind of stale. Like the format gets kind of stale after a bit, and I think you know that's sort of true here for different reasons. Um, One of the things that I think speaks to this is I do think there was too much fixing in the set. I don't I I believe that the designers hedged in the correct direction, which is to lean towards having too much as opposed to too little. I think that's the right way to go. Again, your goal is make a cool set about dragons. That's what we want to do. So you need to have a lot of fixing. And so there's a lot of fixing. There's Evolving Wilds, there's the Triomes, there's the full cycle of 10 dual lands, there's the monuments, there's the Dragonstorm globe. That's five things of fixing at different rarity levels. You have your two or three pieces of green fixing scattered throughout the set. You have Dragon's Bruise Relic. You know what I mean? You just got all this stuff. Sagu Wildling, right? Like they just have all this fixing. And I do think the set would have been a little bit better if Evolving Wilds weren't in it. And I love Evolving Wilds. Evolving Wilds is my favorite. Like I kind of want Evolving Wilds to be in every set, but I think this set would actually have been made better without it. Um, I I just think it was a little bit much, or maybe they could have only done 5 of the 10 dual lands, or maybe you take one of greens. Maybe you don't print Sagu Wildling. Like maybe Sagu Wildling is something, as Omen is something else. Like there's just like a couple of knobs I would probably turn down on the dragon deck, I think, to maybe make it a bit weaker. Because its strength really made the format feel very samey. It was like it's Boros and it's dragons, and those were sort of the two best decks, the decks you're going to run into all the time. Notably, this is like an all-time bad best of one ladder format. There are content creators that I will not name that are not me that say that every single format, like, oh, best of one's so bad, play best of three. You know what I mean? And best of three obviously has more room for nuance, right? That's just true. Everybody knows this, but best of one is the like you got to deal with it. Best of one's the ranked format. Like just like give it up already. This format is a unique case where I do feel it is especially bad because of the polarity of the two prevailing decks that you can really only have in a multicolor set. In normal sets, you can actually like self-correct these problems away, right? But because if everybody's drafting 5 colors, then it like everybody can kind of just draft 5 colors. It's like if every card in Magic were colorless, you would just always take the best card, right? The same is kind of true if it's 5 colors. If everybody's like, oh, I'm gonna take Dragonstorm Globe really highly, and there's 3 people that take a Dragonstorm Globe really highly in pack one, they can all draft 5 colors and they can make it work, right? Because there's so much fixing. Like you can just have so many drafters that are 5 color, and then that leaves 2 or 3 spots for aggro, and then you just have these 2 randos and you're in the pool doing what picking up the scraps. And it's kind of like that's a unique problem for balance in a 5 color or in a 3 color set that didn't really end up being a 3 color set. Although again, I don't think that was necessarily the goal. I think the goal was to make the dragon stuff work. I do. It's kind of the second 3 color set in a row. The last one being Streets of New Capenna, where it's not a 3 color set. Streets of New Capenna was a 2 color set, with blue white being the best deck by a considerable margin, and brokers just being so much better than everything else. Um, this format is almost the opposite, where the best deck is just you play every single good card, and it's really really hard to prevent that when you're making a 3 color set because if you make good enough fixing to play 3 colors, you're probably making good enough fixing to play all 5 colors, and then what's to stop you from just taking all the good cards? Um, the drafts in this format are very complex and unique and difficult. I think this is one of the more interesting pieces of the format. I do think that drafting is interesting and challenging. Drafting is not the part of Magic the Gathering that I find to be the most enjoyable. I like it. I like draft. But the games matter more to me. The gameplay matters more, and the complexity of the drafts is not really a huge boon in favor of the format. I would say that it's mostly neutral. You know, it's cool sometimes, but I think the nuance it does kind of wear off at times. There were a lot of interestingly Just an interesting note. There was a lot of content creators, and I spent some time in doing some percentage gaming. I ended up finishing the top 1200 in Mythic this past month, but there was a lot of percentage gaming in this set, which indicates a couple of things to me. One, the set was very popular, which is true, and two, that there was just kind of like a lot of like experimenting going on. Um, just everybody kind of experimenting a lot. So just kind of interesting thing to think about. And my last bullet point here is there are unique decks to draft. There is this red green aggro deck that I think is actually quite good. I've drafted it once. There's the deck I spoke before about Essence Anchor. That's a deck you can draft. It is a thing. I have done it. It's really cool. But it's it's almost never correct to draft those decks. And when it is, you kind of still have to get really lucky that, like, oh, I saw this thing in pack one and then it was open and then I got all the pieces I needed and then, you know what I mean? Where you could just have drafted like a 5 out of 10 dragons deck and you do like 30% worse, but on average you might just be breaking even, right? And that's where the thing is, like, oh, there's these unique decks you could draft, but are they actually improving your win rate? Maybe not. Like that's kind of unfortunate. Um, so in closing, I feel that this format accomplished its goals. Its design goals ostensibly were accomplished. I think it is a success. I think it is a good limited environment, but I do not think it is the most replayable, and I don't think I'm ever going to come back to it once it's gone. I'm going to be happy to see it go, and I'm going to move on with my life. I think after the arena open this weekend, I think I'm just going to maybe just be done for a couple of weeks. We'll see. Um, I never am though. I just always come back and just do. You know what I mean? I'm never really out. So, all right, that's it. I will see you for the set review for Final Fantasy, or I don't know what it's being called. You know, I think this one's Final Fantasy on Arena. I think the Spider-Man one, the Marvel one, is not going to be Marvel on Arena, but the Final Fantasy one may still be fine. I don't know, whatever. For the next set, the set reviews. It'll be. I'm going to do it. I promise. I'll do it. See ya.